Do you believe that one small act of kindness can save a broken soul? If you think the answer is no, then I promise you, this story will change your mind. What you're about to hear is not just a story, it's a lesson about humanity, hope, and the invisible power of compassion. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because the stories I share here are not just meant to entertain you. They are meant to touch your heart, change your perspective, and remind you of the beauty in this world. Don't miss what's coming next. I was at the lowest point in my life when it happened. You know those moments when everything you've built crumbles around you, and you feel like nothing is left. That was me. I had lost my job, my relationship had fallen apart, and the people I thought would always stand by my side seemed too busy to notice my silent cries. Nights were the worst. I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every failure, every mistake, every wrong choice that led me here. The days weren't much better. I wandered through them like a shadow, drifting through crowds that didn't see me, existing but not really living. My soul felt shattered, broken into pieces I didn't think I could ever put back together. One cold evening, I found myself sitting alone on a park bench. The air was biting against my skin, and the city lights blurred through the mist forming in my tired eyes. I wasn't crying, not really, but there was a heaviness pressing against my chest that made it hard to breathe. I kept asking myself the same question. What's the point? Why keep going when every step feels heavier than the last? People walked by, wrapped in their own lives, couples laughing, friends chatting, parents hurrying with kids. I sat there, invisible, forgotten, as though I didn't belong to the same world anymore. It was then that she appeared. A stranger. She couldn't have been more than 20 years old, with a scarf wrapped around her neck and a paper cup of coffee in her hand. She stopped right in front of me, and at first, I thought maybe she was waiting for someone. But then she looked at me directly, her eyes soft, full of something I hadn't felt in a long time, kindness. Are you okay? She asked gently. It was such a simple question, but it pierced through me like a ray of light in the dark. Nobody had asked me that in weeks. Nobody had cared enough to even notice. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. Words caught in my throat. I wanted to say, I'm fine, like I always did, but something about her presence broke through my defenses. No, I whispered, my voice shaking. I don't think I am. She didn't flinch, didn't awkwardly back away like most people would when faced with raw vulnerability. Instead, she sat down beside me. Do you want some coffee? She asked, offering me her cup. It was warm in my hands when I took it, warmer than anything I had felt in a long time. That small gesture, sharing her coffee with a stranger who looked lost, was so insignificant to her, maybe, but to me, it meant everything. It meant someone saw me. Someone cared enough to stop. We sat there in silence for a while, sipping the coffee. I could feel the steam rising against my face, mingling with the cold air. Finally, she spoke again. You don't have to tell me anything if you don't want to, she said softly, but sometimes, it helps to let it out. I don't know what overcame me, but the dam inside me broke. Words poured out. About losing my job, about feeling like a failure, about the loneliness that gnawed at me day and night. I told her things I hadn't told anyone, not even my closest friends. She listened without interrupting, without judgment, her eyes never leaving mine. For the first time in months, I felt heard. When I finally finished, I expected her to offer solutions, advice, or maybe even pity. But she didn't. She simply placed her hand lightly on mine and said, I don't know what you're going through completely, but I want you to know you're not alone. Even if it feels like the world has turned its back, there are still people who care. You matter. You're here, and that's enough. Those words, you're here, and that's enough, hit me harder than anything else. Because deep down, I hadn't believed I mattered. I had convinced myself the world wouldn't notice if I disappeared. But in that moment, sitting on a park bench with a stranger, I felt seen, acknowledged, validated. Before she left, she smiled at me. Not a polite smile, but a genuine one that reached her eyes. Promise me one thing, she said. Promise me you'll keep going, even if it's hard. Because one day, you'll look back and be glad you did. I nodded, unable to find words, and she walked away into the night, her figure disappearing into the crowd. That night, for the first time in months, I slept without the crushing weight of despair on my chest. I woke up the next morning with her words echoing in my head. You're here, and that's enough. It became a mantra I repeated to myself whenever the darkness crept in. Slowly, day by day, I started to rebuild. I applied for jobs again, reached out to old friends, forced myself to step outside even when I didn't want to. Each small step felt impossible at first, but the memory of her kindness pushed me forward. Weeks turned into months, and I eventually found a new job. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me purpose. I reconnected with people I had drifted away from, and though not every relationship was repaired, some were. I started journaling, writing out my thoughts instead of bottling them inside. And through it all, I carried her with me, the stranger who stopped for a broken soul and reminded me I was still human, still worthy of love and life. One day, about a year later, I was walking through the same park. I passed by the bench where we had met, and I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. It made me realize something important. Kindness doesn't just heal the one who receives it. It transforms them into someone who wants to pass it on. From that day, I made a vow. I would never walk past someone who looked like they were breaking inside. I would never ignore the silent cries I once carried. Because sometimes, all it takes to save a life is a smile, a kind word, a shared coffee. Since then, I've had my own chances to be that stranger for someone else. Once, I noticed a man sitting alone outside a grocery store, his shoulders slumped, his face heavy with sadness. I stopped, asked if he was okay, bought him something to eat, and sat with him for a while. He didn't say much, but when I left, he smiled at me with tears in his eyes. Another time, I helped a young student on the bus who looked overwhelmed, just by talking to her and reminding her she was doing her best. These small acts may seem like nothing to the world, but I know now, they can save a broken soul. Just like mine was saved. Years have passed since that night on the bench, but I never forgot her. I never saw her again, but her kindness lives on in me. It ripples outward, touching lives she will never know about. And maybe that's the beauty of it, how one small act of kindness can echo endlessly, changing the world one soul at a time. So when people ask me if I believe in humanity, if I believe in hope, I smile and say, yes. Because once, a stranger saved me with nothing more than a cup of coffee, a gentle smile, and a reminder that I mattered. That small act of kindness didn't just save me in that moment, it gave me back my life. And I'll never stop being grateful for it. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Share it with someone who might need this reminder today, because you never know whose broken soul you could save with just a little kindness. And if you want to hear more powerful true stories that restore faith in humanity, hit that subscribe button now, turn on notifications, and join this journey. Together, we can create a ripple effect of kindness that reaches the world. Remember, your small act of kindness might just save a life.